When you think of Porsche, you may think of luxury, prestige, class. But the cost of ownership may not be as bad as you thought. Today, we're going to talk to some hardcore Porsche guys about the pros and cons of owning a Porsche 911. What type of cars do you have?
I have a 95 993.
2004 GT3.
2018 GT3 Touring.
I have a 993 as well and the 997.
And then I have a 1978 911 SC.
So, are these cars your dailies?
Definitely not.
They are for me.
No,
For me.
Not for me.
no daily. I work from home.
I do everything like
How do you
drop my daughters off at school, get groceries, and do Costco runs on them.
What's your favorite thing about these cars?
Man, there's a lot.
So, yeah,
Laundry
exactly.
list of shit, man.
I know. I was gonna say I don't think I have one thing.
Yeah, I think like as good as like the chassis and the handling is in the modern cars, like it's the engine for me. Like the fact that it revs so high and it's still a manual, it just feels like a very pure driving experience, but in like a modern car still.
It's a visceral experience overall. I also like the fact that if you take a look at all of these behind us, you can clearly tell they're from radically different years, maybe outside of my red one and Adrian's. But the whole premise of the car remains the same, right? So it's like generationally, you got a lot of history built in there, and you kind of feel it as each model you get into and you drive it, it has its own little special twist on it. So I think, I don't really think that there are a lot of cars that are out there that you could point to that one relatively look the same from when they first kind of rolled off the line until the current gen ones. And as each kind of model line comes about, adds another little special twist on it. So that's every time you drive one, you get a little piece of that history each time you move up.
The brand doesn't really deviate from what it was intended to do, right?
Yeah.
They're all reliable. They can all be driven. They all have relatively good creature comforts, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think the visceral part of it is really what, you know, and it's one thing to, you know, like when you think about Juan's car and certainly my car, right, and even Carlos's, like you can really just change a few things and it changes the whole car, so to speak. I mean, obviously my car is probably the most modified as far as the body, maybe not quite the engine, but you know, like what Carlos was saying, it's just, they're just special car, man. It's hard to describe, to drive like an air-cooled and describe it in words unless you actually driven one.
And so if someone wants to, get into Porsches and they're like, oh, I want a 911, what are some red flags to buying one of these cars? Are there any?
Yeah, price is the big one. Yeah, price is the big one. They all have different things that are,
They have their own quirks.
that are there to avoid, right? Every year has that one red flag that says, oh, you got to get this checked out before you do that. So
Yeah. So like my car has head stud issues. 993s. What do 993s and 964s have?
They're perfect, actually.
Yeah, there is no issues there.
now 964s need like seals everywhere.
Yeah.
Right, they leak a lot, right? Because the brand was going through like bankruptcy during that time. I don't know.
Well, yeah, 996s, IMS, 997, IMS, 991s. I think the dot ones have motor issues.
The dot ones have
yeah.
motor issues, yeah. The dots seem good so far, but fingers crossed, I don't know.
But I think for the most part, as long as you get a car that is, sorted, is driven, and has good maintenance history, then you can't really go wrong. These cars are stupid reliable. It's insane.
You drive the piss out of them. I would just say this though, regardless of what model you're looking at, I've always been a huge proponent of being able to get the best possible car you can for your budget, right? Because I think the old adage is that if you buy a cheaper car, you're inevitably going to end up spending a ton anyway, getting it up to snuff. And so you can perhaps shortcut that process. Just make sure you do your due diligence. Have really make close buddies with guys like these, because they're the ones that before I got into it, I'd pick their brains, and they gave me up on certain things on what to look out for and pitfalls to watch out for, and that certainly helped me out, So
Yeah, I think in addition to that, like what Carl was saying, either you pay for it at the back end or you pay for it at the front end, right? So
poison.
Yeah, pick your poison. They're old cars, right? Inevitably, they're gonna have their issues. But I think Juan was saying too, at the end of the day, they're bulletproof. you know, for the most part. So
Okay. And for like monthly maintenance, like let's say for the older generations, is it different from the newer generations? Like,
Not drastically.
Oil,
I mean,
lots of oil.
yeah, lots of oil.
Lots of oil.
Change the oil, bleed the brakes. It's like normal car stuff. You don't have to do anything special with these.
yeah.
The only ones you don't have the cost of coolant replacement though.
Yeah.
So there's
Buy,
that.
like 12 quarts of oil
It's true.
every
Yeah.
time.
Yes, at a minimum.
But yeah, it's the biggest thing, especially with air-cooled cars. Just check your oil. That's the big
Yes,
thing.
often.
Yeah, check the oil often.
let's say, what's your monthly maintenance cost?
I don't know if I could break it down
Yeah.
from like a monthly perspective because it's like ebbs and flows, right? I would say in general though, like I'll experience like a major every year, right? So where you flush everything out, probably some fresh plugs, you know, your cabin filters, things like that. Nothing that's radically out of the ordinary that you would handle from another car. And in terms of like annual maintenance, I don't know. I mean, plus or minus a couple $100, but I'd probably
Yeah.
peg it at about like, I don't know, right under $1,000 for like your materials and things like that. And I think you're good to go. Just really depends on how much you're driving the cars.
Someone wanted to get one and they had an unlimited budget. Which year, which model would you recommend?
Singer 911.
Yeah.
Singer 911.
You wouldn't find any of our cars.
Yeah.
You'd find it full of singers.
You say
actually.
unlimited, yeah. That's a different level.
Okay, so what about like just a normal person? It's like, I don't know, I wanna get a Porsche, but which one should I get? Which model? Like,
Depends on the budget, really.
I think I go back to what Carlos just said a minute ago, right? You know, find the best car that works for you.
Yeah. Like
I mean, that could be a 964, that could be Varun's car, right? I mean,
That could be a 944 turbo too.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's 911.
Yeah.
Like the Cayman and the Boxster, I think, still offer like maybe the best.
Great bang
like,
for the buck cars.
Yeah. Like well, maybe some of the best driving experiences you can find at like a really good price point. So should we look at like the 97 era? Like as long as like the IMS is kind of sorted, like yeah, the prices have gone up a bit, but there's such good drivers cars, I think, and like especially for the money, I don't think it's easy to beat as far as like an experience.
okay. What is the drive experience like? Like, does it vary drastically?
Here's my take. As long as you're dealing with a 911 that is of 993 vintage and newer, directionally, they'll feel pretty similar. And I think it's because the multi-link rear end. When you get to Quan's car and the torsion equipped cars, that's where I think you'll feel a significant difference. That's my take though. But I think in general, as long as you're dealing with a 993 and up, you'll feel directionally the same.
Has anything unique ever happened or anything broken down while you're driving? Or...
Yeah, my power steering rack just literally flooded my garage with fluid recently. So I had to get that rebuilt twice. So there's the most recent one.
The fuel pump broke down. It just stopped working on I-5.
Oh shit.
And I was in the shoulder. There was no shoulder. So half the car was in the slow lane. The other half the car was in this makeshift shoulder because they were digging it out. And that's probably the hardest thing to get to because you got to lift the car. It's towards the front. It's right by the steering rack. And the car doesn't run, especially even an old car, it doesn't run without fuel pump. So
Yeah.
My fuel pump relay popped out after hitting a pothole driving Alice's. And it was at a downhill section too. So the car just cut out. I had no brakes. Like I just had to like stand on the brakes to slow down the car. And I was leading the group too. Yeah, that was the funniest part.
Oh man.
turns the power up.
Oh, the rally.
That relay does, right?
Yeah. No, the car just cut out. Like I hit a pothole and the car turned off, and I couldn't turn it back on.
Luckily, I haven't run into like that yet. Knock on wood.
Why did you guys decide to buy these?
Me, when I was growing up, these were my poster cars, right? So it's like, as a little kid or in high school, those were always the what you reach for and what you dream about. And I'm just lucky enough to be able to experience it. But that's why I bought it. There's a lot of lineage and just history that goes into these things, and that's why those are the cars that always came top of mind, front of mind to me when I was a kid. And then now that I'm a lot older, and it's like you get to live the dream. So
I think for me it was like just the experience. Like I don't think there's any car that like revs to like 9,000 RPM, has a manual. That's not an S2000, I guess, but that still feels like it still feels like a raw car, but it's still like modern and like in a way. I don't think there's like another car like that's like this. That like basically even if you extend your price point like much higher.
You know, I think it's the sometimes you buy them because you know you see them in movies. I think what keeps you here is the people that buy them, the other people that buy them. You know, it's definitely a good set of guys that buy them. They're, you know, they typically don't have huge egos. You know, they know they're not driving Ferraris or Lamborghinis. You know, they're not revving through your car meets. You know, a lot of the guys do the work themselves because the cars can take that. You know, they're relatively accessible for like doing brake jobs or, you know, bleeding brake fluid or changing the oil. But they're, you know, it's a sensible way of getting into a supercar, right? It doesn't break the bank. It's reliable, and you drive them every day. But yeah, I think a lot of it is just the other people that buy them. You know, you enjoy their company because I think most of the.
That's such a great point. It's an underrated point too.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I look forward to the most on a monthly basis is actually getting a chance to hang out with these guys. And really, like that's the common denominator is the car, but you get to experience so much else, right? We talk about each other's kids, we talk about whatever else, or how we may have fucked up an oil change, but you know, it's a common denominator. It's really neat to be able to hang out with your buddies that share a lot of the same interests. So
I just like driving. That's the biggest thing with these cars. I like old cars and I like driving, and I don't think there's a better package than an old 911 to accomplish that. Steering feel is like one of the best on any car made today. Brakes are amazing. Just the noise it makes and how much punishment an old car like that can take and just keep going. There's not many other chassis that can accomplish all that.